Every single combat boot issued to a U.S. Army soldier comes from one place. Not overseas, not outsourced. Made right here in America. But here's the thing. This is the last military boot factory left in the entire country. The final one. And once you see how these boots are made, you'll understand why they trusted this facility to equip soldiers for decades. Today, we're going inside. A military boot isn't just a shoe. It's engineered to protect a soldier's feet through terrain that would destroy ordinary footwear. It has to be waterproof, durable, break in correctly, and perform consistently across every condition, from swamps to deserts to Arctic cold. What you're about to see is how that happens. The complete process. From raw leather arriving at the factory, all the way to a finished combat boot being shipped to a soldier. Coming up, we're walking through the last military boot manufacturing facility in America. But there's one specific stage in this process that separates a good boot from a boot trusted by the U.S. Army. A stage that requires knowledge that's been built over generations in this exact location. That's where the real story is. Let's start from the beginning. Here's a question worth asking. Why does America's military trust one facility to make every combat boot? The answer isn't simple, and it's not just about tradition. There's something specific about this place, about the knowledge embedded in it, about the way the process has been refined over decades, that makes it the facility the U.S. Army depends on. And that knowledge is about to disappear unless something changes, because this is the last one. The final American military boot factory. So let's understand what that actually means. Every combat boot starts with a decision, a choice about what leather gets used. The facility receives hides from suppliers, but not every hide gets turned into a military boot. Workers inspect each one carefully. They're looking for specific characteristics: thickness, grain quality, flexibility, durability. A hide that works perfectly for a civilian dress shoe might be completely wrong for a combat boot. And a hide that's slightly flawed might still be perfect for military use, depending on where the flaw is located. This is knowledge that can't be written down in a manual. It comes from years of experience, from understanding how leather behaves, from knowing which imperfections matter and which ones don't. The workers sorting the leather aren't just doing a job. They're making decisions that will affect how a soldier's boot performs in the field months from now. Once the leather is selected, it goes through a grading process. The facility divides the hide into sections based on quality and characteristics. The best sections get reserved for the parts of the boot that need to be most durable: the heel, the sides, the areas that will experience the most stress. The remaining sections get used for areas that don't need to be quite as tough. This segmentation is critical, because military boots have to meet standards that most civilian footwear never comes close to. They have to support a soldier carrying 60 pounds of gear. They have to keep feet dry in swamps. They have to maintain their structure after being worn hard for months. A mistake in leather selection early in the process cascades through everything that comes after. Once the leather is graded and sorted, it gets cut into patterns. These patterns have been refined over generations. They've been tested in the field. They've been adjusted based on feedback from soldiers. And now they're cut with precision by machines that follow exact specifications. But the cut itself is just the beginning. Because after cutting, the pieces have to be assembled into the upper, the part of the boot that covers the foot and ankle. The upper is constructed through multiple stitching operations. Leather panels get joined together. Reinforcement pieces get stitched in. The ankle collar gets attached. Each seam has to be strong enough to hold under stress, but also flexible enough to allow the boot to move naturally with a foot. This is where the work becomes visible. You can see the stitching on the finished boot. And that stitching is either perfect or it's noticeable. There's no hiding mediocre work on a military boot. Every seam is evidence of whether this facility knows what it's doing. Here's what's remarkable. Some of this stitching is still done by hand in certain sections. Not because machines can't do it, but because human hands can feel the leather, can sense the right tension, can make adjustments that a rigid machine can't. And this facility has workers who've been doing this for decades. Their hands know, without thinking about it, exactly how a seam should feel. After the upper is assembled, something critical happens. The upper gets stretched over a form called a last, and this is where the boot actually takes shape. The last is a wooden or plastic form that matches the intended shoe size and shape. The upper gets moistened slightly to make the leather more pliable. Then it gets stretched over the last and held in place while the leather dries. The leather conforms to the shape of the last, taking on the curves and proportions that define the final boot. But here's the problem that this facility has solved over decades. Leather doesn't want to stay in shape. It has memory. It wants to return to its original flat form. So the lasting process has to overcome that natural tendency. The tension has to be right. The moisture level has to be right. The drying time has to be right. Get any of these variables wrong, and the finished boot won't fit correctly. It won't break in properly. It won't support a foot the way it's supposed to. And a soldier wearing an ill-fitting boot in the field isn't just uncomfortable, they're at risk. This is the kind of knowledge that exists in one place. Because this facility has made thousands upon thousands of boots, they've learned, through repetition and adjustment, exactly how to handle leather so it stays shaped the way they want it to. Once the upper is properly shaped, the sole gets attached. This is where engineering meets craftsmanship. A military boot sole has to be extremely durable. It has to grit varied terrain. It has to provide cushioning while still being rigid enough to support someone carrying heavy loads. The sole isn't just glued on, it's stitched and glued together. Multiple attachment points ensure that the sole won't separate from the upper, no matter what stress gets applied. The heel is attached as a separate piece. And the heel of a military boot takes incredible punishment. Soldiers are constantly pushing off, landing hard, carrying weight. The heel has to be reinforced, durable, and shaped in a way that distributes force correctly. Again, this is where the facility's experience matters. They know how thick the heel needs to be. They know the right angle. They know how to attach it so it lasts through a soldier's tour of duty. This is the stage we mentioned, the one that separates good boots from boots trusted by the U.S. Army. A brand new boot is stiff. The leather is unyielding. If a soldier put on a brand new, unbroken-in combat boot and marched for 20 miles, their feet would be destroyed. Blisters, pain, potential injury. So the facility has a break-in process. New boots go into a special chamber where they're flexed and worked, repeatedly, systematically. The leather gets conditioned. It gets broken in under-controlled conditions. This isn't just putting the boots on and wearing them. It's an engineered process that mimics months of wear, but in a controlled environment. After this process, the boots come out pre-broken in. A soldier can put them on and they're ready to perform immediately. There's no painful adjustment period. There's no risk of blisters from stiff leather. The boot is ready to work from day one. This process is one of the reasons the U.S. Army trusts this facility. Because they understand that a soldier's comfort and safety are connected to boot quality. And this facility doesn't just make boots. They make boots that are ready to perform. After break-in, the boots go through finishing processes. The leather gets polished or treated based on the type of boot. Any rough edges get smoothed. The boots get cleaned. They get inspected for defects. And the inspection at a military boot factory is uncompromising. Every boot gets checked. Stitching is examined. The sole is tested for attachment strength. The leather is evaluated for defects. If a boot doesn't meet standards, it gets rejected. It doesn't get shipped to a soldier. Because there's no acceptable level of failure in military footwear. A boot that fails in the field isn't just an inconvenience, it's a liability. It can affect a soldier's ability to do their job. It can create a safety issue. So quality control here isn't a formality. It's fundamental to the purpose of the facility. A finished combat boot leaving this facility is the result of decisions made at every stage: leather selection, pattern design, assembly precision, lasting technique, sole attachment, break-in processing, inspection. Every stage affects the final product. And here's what's worth understanding. This knowledge, this process, this facility, it exists in one place. When this factory closes, which it eventually will, this expertise doesn't migrate somewhere else. It disappears. The knowledge that the U.S. Army has relied on for decades gets lost. That's what the last military boot factory in America actually means. It means that right now, this moment, this is where American military boots are made. And once it's gone, that capability goes with it. Now, here's what this all actually means when you understand the full journey. Here's what's really happening in this factory. Raw leather comes in. It gets evaluated by people who know leather the way a master craftsperson knows their material. It gets shaped, stitched, lasted, and broken in by workers who've done this for decades. And it comes out as a combat boot trusted by the U.S. Army. But that's not the whole story. The real story is that this knowledge, the expertise, the experience, the refined process, exists in one place. When a soldier puts on a pair of boots made here, they're wearing the product of generations of refinement. They're wearing American manufacturing at its most refined. And this is the last place in America where that happens. That's not nostalgia. That's not sentimentality. That's the reality of what the last military boot factory actually means. Once this facility is gone, this specific capability disappears. The knowledge doesn't transfer. The process doesn't scale. It just ends. Understanding that changes how you see these boots. They're not just footwear. They're the final product of a facility doing one thing exceptionally well, something that matters to soldiers who depend on it. If this kind of American manufacturing story is what you're here for, hit like, subscribe, and stay close. Because what's coming next on this channel is built for exactly the kind of person who watches something like this all the way through. Drop a comment below and tell us which American factory or manufacturing process you want us to go inside next. Your suggestion might just become our next video. See you inside the next one.